Wasn't born to be a fighter, aiming higher, where the air feels lighter. When I saw myself inside another, then I knew what I had to do. No, I needed to fight for you. Ears turn words into silence, running with no guidance, lovers without love. One day, feel your heart go colder, tell you that it's over. You need the hurt to make it heal. So give me something real, give me something true, give me something painful, something I can feel. If this is how it ends, if this is where it dies, if this is where my heart breaks, I need to make it feel. So give me something real. Ooh, just give me something real. Some days get heavy as a boulder, a wounded soldier, 5 years older. Heads got stuck in the game, every day it stayed the same. Doesn't matter who's to blame, things just spin out of control like a shotgun to the soul. And baby, we just had to deal. So give me something real, give me something true, give me something painful, something I can feel. If this is how it ends, if this is where it dies, if this is where my heart breaks, I need to make it feel. Oh, give me something real. Yeah, give me something real. Give me something real, give me something true, give me something painful, something I can feel. If this is how it ends, if this is where it dies, if this is where my heart breaks, I need to make it real. So give me something real, give me something true, give me something painful, something I can feel. If this is how it ends, if this is where it dies, oh, this is where my heart breaks, I need to make it feel. Oh, give me something real, give me something real. Ooh, just give me something real.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Peering Forum 3, the panel discussion where we'll be talking about the peering beyond the edge, cloud, cloud edge, and the new interconnection facility. Quick introduction. This interconnection is no longer confined to a building or in an exchange. Cloud, edge, IXPs, and satellites are reshaping where and how we meet, how networks meet. Today's discussion looks at what shift really means for operators regions like APAC and the future of peering beyond the exchange. Let me quickly introduce our panel members. So my name is Jose Santiago from Guam Exchange. I'll be the moderator for this panel. And to my left, I'll just have them introduce themselves so we can just get a little vocal warm up. Start with Gio.
Hi, I'm Gio Bacareza from the Philippines. I head Rice PH and GetAfix internet exchange in the Philippines. Whenever I come to these APRICOT, I always feel that I'm learning so much because our company actually started as a software company, and we found that internet was so bad in the Philippines, so we vowed to help solve it. So we started the ISP, and then we also started the exchange as part of that mission to help solve internet in the Philippines. But like I said, every time I come here, I'm always learning from you guys and hopefully from my fellow panelists here.
Thanks, Gio. So I'm Naveed Haq. I'm the Senior Director for Infrastructure and Connectivity with the Internet Society. We are a global charity organization that works towards a more open, globally connected, secure, and trustworthy internet. We do, of course, work around infrastructure and peering precisely. And I'm also looking forward to learn because this is an interesting topic that Jose has put together.
Hello, my name is Dito from Jakarta AX. We are part of NTT Indonesia. And other than IX, we also have IP Transit and then the ISP, you name it, to make the data center ecosystem more lively. And then, yep, it's good to be here and discuss with all of the panelists here.
Thank you. My name is Fabienne Adam. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management for Internet Exchanges for Equinix. This is my first time at APRICOT, and it's been definitely a learning experience, getting firsthand feedback from a lot of our customers and partners on the specificities of this market, and looking forward to hearing more perspectives on this panel.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katarina Stefanovic from Telekom Serbia, which is major operator in Serbia. And I'm working there for around 2 years. And in my free time, I enjoy conducting some measurements with RIPE Atlas platform. So I'm looking forward also to learn new things from this panel. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. I want to give a quick shout out to Bijal Sanghani, who helped put from the program committee, who helped put together this panel, work together and found these panelists to be very, unique and diverse, and hopefully that diverse perspective brings some really interesting discussions as we go through the panel. So our very first question that we're going to go through kind of just sets the tone for the rest of the discussion. It's kind of a definition on each of everyone's perspective. What is the edge in terms of where you work and how you interconnect with the rest of the world? What is the edge?
Because I'm always to your left and I always get the first. So maybe I pass it to Naveed this time and we go round robin the first question.
So I think from our perspective, given we do work a lot with the internet users and we want to have more users connected, I'll keep it simple. For me, edge is any device, any computer, any mobile, any IoT device, anything that is nearest to the user, which is having an access to the internet. So that's as simple as that.
Yeah, for me, the edge is where the traffic no longer travel further away and to deliver the value of the content. And then I believe three main things that we need to take care of is the localization of the content, and then the latency, and then the cost. So with that being said, the edge is right now our goal is to make the edge much more closer to the user. Yeah, I believe that's what the edge is from my perspective.
So from our perspective, the edge is where we have our data center facilities. So that's very much focused on the tier 1 metros, where we aggregate traffic from subsea cables, network service providers, partners that are extending then the last mile connectivity to the user.
And from my perspective, or let's say from measurement perspective, the edge is the point where let's say, traffic enter the internet backbone. It could be big data center, it could be point of presence, or it could be, for example, I don't know, some cloud point also.
Okay, I agree with my fellow panelists. No, I mean, kidding aside, I think to me, I look at the edge. It really depends on who you are and what the function that you have. For example, for CDNs, maybe, and it's also kind of like the optimal, because if you know if there's no cost, there's no physics, then the edge would be really in our brain, right? Because that's what consumes all the apps and content. But because of that, it really depends on that optimal place where, if you go further, the marginal cost is actually higher. So maybe for CDNs, it's on the exchange, because if you put like CDNs in exchange, you get to get connected to more networks. Maybe for hyperscalers, where it's more compute, maybe it's on a DC, because that's where power is most efficient. And anything further than that, then power is really not going to be efficient and all that stuff. So really, to me, it depends on who you are and what your, what kind of what is it that you have, and that function really moves depending on economics and optimization, I guess. And if costs go down, then it probably goes further and closer to the user. But cost is really what's kind of like stopping it, I guess.
Thank you for all of those answers. So really, the edge is very subjective to who you are, right? As what you operate as a network. I like Naveed's response. Really, it's like the edge really is in the fingertips of the users. It's just you define yourself of how close you are. Are you the last mile? Are you the last feet? It depends on what your operation of business is on to reach the users that's within your business case, right? So thank you for those responses. Moving on to the next question, we're going to be focusing on satellite and LEO integration. And, there's been a lot of development in space technologies and getting connectivity, not just on subsea, but also utilizing the space between us and in the sky. So I'm going to shift this question over to Katarina first, instead of Gio here. Um, how do LEO networks fit into traditional interconnection models? Are they complementary, disruptive, or a bit of both?
First of all, something came to my mind when we talk about first question. From my operator perspective, when I read something about how operators move from cloud to Open RAN, we could see that we move from cloud computing to edge computing. So we just, let's say, move from more centralized to more distributed networks, like the edges in, let's say, LEO constellation, and now edge in LEO network is, let's say, gateway station. And how LEO networks fit into traditional interconnected models, I will say that they add more edges from measurement perspective.
Okay, so they're adding more edges, more endpoints for us to consider on the endpoint. Can I get a perspective from Naveed on how you see this might be complementary or disruptive, or in the kind of ecosystem?
So I will call it more complementary than disruptive. And I would say that complementary model is or will bring more hybrid interconnection. So now we see usually it's the traditional interconnection model where we are connected through traditional way of connectivity, whether it's an undersea cable or it's fiber within your country, or even microwave links or wireless, whatever. But now what we're seeing with the LEO coming up, I think it will work as a complementary, where we perhaps will see some hybrid interconnection models coming in, where we might see some data center or exchanging, installing Starlink systems, integrating them to Starlink. Because although so far the countries which have been talking with and understanding the Starlink, the actual purpose is to connect the unconnected, people who do not have connectivity in rural and remote areas. I was in Bhutan last year, and for me it was like, okay, let me talk with Bhutanese and understand, because that's a country which is the terrain is pretty much mountainous. It's difficult for a traditional network operator to go to the last mile or to the edge. So how does the Starlink comes into play, and is it really connecting the villages in Bhutan? I was told this is last year August that there are currently 300 plus Starlink connections in Bhutan, and 95% of them are in cities. And I was like, okay, so so looks like that while Starlink has the opportunity and options to connect the unconnected, looks like that there is something which currently is not working based on their business, and people perhaps want to have a backup connection, but this concentration is still in the urban. So when I talk about then that thing, then let's look at where are the most edges in the world, which are still the cities and urban population. And that is where the concentration of the peering is as well. So if Starlink is also currently more matured in cities, and that is where traditional operators are interconnecting as well, that is where you see that angle of complementary interconnection rather than being a disruptive altogether. I hope this was useful, or I got very philosophical.
I think these questions are kind of philosophical more than it is technical. And you touched on a really good point talking about how the satellite companies are targeting the rural areas, right? That was kind of what we saw as the primary target. I know for like Indonesia and the Philippines as an archipelago, a lot of these satellite companies are giving these opportunities for people who never had higher performance connectivity a chance to get online and be part of this digital world. I'll give a chance to either Dito or Gio. Dito.
Yeah, for this one, I believe it could be both. So for the traditional access network, maybe it could be disruptive. And for the IX point of view, for the IXP, I think it could be complementary because our goal is to make another interconnection hub other than Jakarta to make it more have resiliency and et cetera, et cetera. So I believe from the IX point of view, it could be both complementary and disruptive on the other hand for the traditional network access. So yeah, that's my perspective.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our,
Sorry. From the Philippine perspective, I think it's largely complementary because the Philippines, with such poor infrastructure to begin with, I'll give you some stats. Only 30% of our households have fiber broadband connections, so there's 70% that actually don't have it. Maybe they have mobile, but there's still a lot of places in the Philippines that cannot have access to good broadband, fixed broadband, right? So there is a good complement because telcos also don't go to these areas because maybe not only is it expensive to get there, but because they're remote, maybe the ROIs are not as good as when you go to an urban center. So it's really with those factors in there, having low Earth orbit satellite really kind of answers that need. We do see some disconnects though in the business models because I think in when I see the offerings of Starlink or other, it doesn't really fit the persona that you try to, like, the users in those remote areas. Because they're remote, the poverty levels there are also, the income per capita is lower than in the metro. So most of the early users of Starlink in the Philippines are really resorts, luxury resorts that need internet for their guests, right? Where you pay a lot. But we do see a lot of growth in Starlink, and I think there's entrepreneurial organizations like unconnected.org and some other organizations that try to kind of like bridge the gap between the Starlink business model and the market that there's actually where LEO satellites are actually needed, right? So I hope to see a lot of these like business model innovations that would bridge that gap because in a country like the Philippines, it's badly needed. The exchange, we're trying to help like ISPs lower their bandwidth costs so that they can recirculate, things that they would pay for overpriced bandwidth. They recirculate that to put more fiber. But then having this actually also accelerates the access to these otherwise inaccessible places in the Philippines. So yeah.
Thank you, Gio. That was a very good explanation that leads us right into the next discussion. We're talking about economics, right? You're talking about how the cost and everything changes, especially for those customers. So the next question is, does Leo Edges meaningfully change the economics or feasibility of regional peering? I think you kind of touched upon that, but I want to see what Equinix has to say about regional, how that affects economics and regional peering as a kind of, data center IX kind of exists globally. How do you see that affecting you economically?
Great question. I think what we're seeing is, or to go back, for us, Leo edges are extremely complementary to what we're doing. So ground stations are in our data centers, around our data centers, and they're aggregating their traffic from the rural areas in our facilities. And so backhauling that traffic to tier ones is extending our reach beyond to where we could actually reach it. From an economics feasibility of regional peering, I think it also has the potential to add very well to it, just because it extends the reach again. Like if we're looking at a tier or a secondary market, if we're going to enter it, we're going to look at the numbers of eyeballs. If we're looking at some APAC example, Chiang Mai has a metro area with 1.5 million eyeballs. If we're now extending it to the rural areas, that's 8 million on top of that. And so with that, the addressable market is now 9.5 million, which absolutely changes the feasibility of a local peering point in that market.
So quite unintentionally, your market reachability just grew because of that this implementation. So Katarina, as a RIPE Atlas ambassador, one of the things that we do is deploy probes to all of these edge networks to user ends. Have you seen any interesting performance that could be tied economically, seeing these probes on these networks that are connected to these LEO satellites?
Yes, definitely. Especially, I think it's useful for regions which are really fragmented or for island, especially here in Indonesia, in Jakarta, where we have around 18,000 islands, which is a really huge number of islands. And it is really expensive and difficult to deploy, let's say, terrestrial network on this island. And I have really, really interesting measurement from Kiribati Island, where I could see when I started my measurement from source probe on that island, and the target was in the US, I could see that the packets entered the backbone directly through to NTT Taiwan provider. So for me, it's were very, very good insights. But keep in mind that we need to have good interoperability and connectivity between the, let's say, satellite segment with a ground infrastructure. So I think that's crucial if we want things to work.
Right, so now that we've got the infrastructure set up, now we've got testing in place, with those metrics, we could potentially use that information for business decisions and how to either make better connections or improve technology in a way, right?
Yes, and I also want to add that when I conduct one measurement from Japan to Europe, I could see that on different days, my packet from Starlink probe enter different edges. And I think it's supposed maybe because of some congestion or failure on that point. So yes, they could be dynamically also.
I really find that interesting because I've always thought of LEO satellites just another access network. I guess from the IXP perspective, it's just another access network. So there's really that complement, right? Where IXS kind of like helps in the coordination and aggregation of this peering traffic, while Leo would really look into like increasing the edge. So, but that's really interesting because I also see in our market that at some point Starlink would actually have to go to the IX and get get peering from there because I think it's not economical to go through the satellite to get back, backhaul back to Singapore, for example. So there's still a bit of that, they still need to go to the ground and get peering from wherever there's a peering density. And we see that in the Philippines as well. So I guess in other markets, that's also like that. It's just like, the physics of traffic would go to where the gravity is, right? So, but it's interesting that you see that it comes from different, when you measure it, so.
Yes, if you believe me, when I compared in some overlapping countries in Europe, where is my source probes in overlapping countries, and then I have target probe in Asia, I could see that round trip time in Starlink is really lower than from fixed wireless access networks. So it's a huge difference between them. So I could share with you my measurements.
Yeah, I think that's where I was answering previous question about the hybrid thing. And I heard that India, perhaps there is something already happening with an IX and LEO coming together and LEO getting into the IX peering fabric. But in terms of the feasibility, I guess, why we need peering and interconnection to make internet more faster and cheaper? That's always the key objective. And with more edges means more internet users. With LEO means more internet users. So that complements the access of bringing more internet users online. And I guess there is, of course, a feasibility that everyone gets a faster, cheaper experience. When it happens, in terms of LEO's perspective, let's see. But what Gio said and my other panelists said as well, I could see as well in near future, we seeing this happening in various economies.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, at the end of the day, growth is growth, right? Right? The more eyeballs on the network, the more our networks are growing, right? So, we started talking about the Asia Pacific perspective. That leads us right into the next question. So, this panel is moving very organically through the questions. I love it. So, the next question is, which parts of the Asia Pacific region stand to benefit most from new edges and why? Let's start with Dito.
Yeah. So I would say, of course, Indonesia, maybe Philippines, because we are similar with in terms of geographic, right? And then especially the LEO help improve the network access from the customer in the remote areas and the rural areas also. And once the Starlink also connect to the Jakarta IX, I can see like they established in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And then in the last 1 year, I think they grew very significantly. And then I believe it also helps the Indonesian users to connect with a better performance, better latency, better price maybe. So yeah, it really improved one of the part of Indonesia, like for example, the Eastern Indonesia that really have so many islands in that one and don't have really like a fiber to the home internet. So yeah, I would say Indonesia, yes.
I think definitely the Philippines would benefit from all these new edges. In fact, one of the main reasons I attend APRICOT and these events is I try to convince the CDNs and the hyperscalers to actually move their edge to the Philippines. Of course, there's they have their economics to contend with. But I always say that there's an upside in the Philippines with 120 million people. Internet usage to those that actually have internet are actually high compared to the Western countries. So if you kind of like if you give internet to the unconnected and they have those usage, then I'm trying to convince them there's actually a business case to move the edge in the Philippines. So we're glad that LEO businesses are operating in the Philippines, and we're seeing good innovative partnerships, for example, with Globe Telecom. I don't know if Achi's here, but Globe and Starlink has just announced the first partnership between a mobile and a satellite network to do voice and SMS through that, right? So there's a lot of these, and in places like the Philippines and Indonesia, where geographically challenged countries, maybe in the Philippines, poor infrastructure to begin with, moving the edge closer to the users is really beneficial, not just on the experience side, but also on the cost side of the providers and ultimately to the users in the Philippines. Like another stat, guys, in Southeast Asia, for example, in terms of the cost of internet per average income in the Philippines, we're one of the highest. So that still needs to go down in the Philippines. And one of the ways it could go down is if we move the edge closer to the users in the Philippines. So yeah, we will definitely benefit.
I guess if you ask me, I would say all of the 1.3 billion unconnected users in Asia Pacific will. But precisely when I look at this, I think about small island developing states and I look at the landlocked countries. Why? Because both of them have an expensive access to the internet currently. Small islands because of and you know better than me, and landlocked because they have dependencies, a lot of it. So while it's all 1.2 billion plus users in Asia Pacific, but in terms of economies, I see small island development states and the landlocked countries.
Yeah, so like the interesting was geographically challenged countries. So for islands, it's vast amounts of ocean. For landlocked countries, maybe mountainous terrains. Right, it makes it challenging for them to get better performing internet. Any feedback from Equinix? I mean, you guys have locations all over Asia. How do you guys kind of decide what's the next place that deserves or you think is a good case to build?
From our perspective, and expanding it just across, like further than, or not expanding it further, but not just talking about LEO edges, but secondary markets. So we've traditionally been just in the tier 1 metros, but we're seeing, and we're exploring actively the secondary markets for local deployments, and mostly that's driven by demand. So local content being available, content providers moving into these secondary markets, which is made possible by communication costs are decreasing massively. And so that definitely helps us go into these markets. To give you an example, like when we were looking into Johor a few years ago, 100 gig connectivity cost $35,000. 2 years later, that's down to $5,000. So that helps us a lot with building that business case to go into that market and providing connectivity there. Who stands most from these new edges? I think there's another angle to that, and that is regulatory compliance, right? We're seeing a lot of APEC markets introducing regulatory compliance for data to stay localized, and that almost forces the demand in these secondary markets and the local presence of data center and connectivity.
That's often something that we forget when we talk about is like the regulatory kind of confinements that we have to work around, which is why some networks are the way they are because of those restrictions or guidelines. All right, moving on to our next question, still on the APAC perspective. The question is, what unique regulatory, geographic, or commercial challenges exist when deploying new edges in APAC? So let's just go back to Fabian. She was already talking about regulatory, so let's dive deeper into that.
For us, the biggest challenge is really that APAC is vast, right? And so every country has its own regulatory requirements. Other markets that we're in, there's overlaying regulatory bodies, like take Europe, for example. The EU gives guidelines that kind of make it easier to adhere to that in multiple countries. We don't see that in APAC. Licensing is definitely also a big topic, and licensing varying across all of the different countries. From a commercial perspective, it's hardware import duties that also add a big toll to these markets. I think we talked about geographic challenges already. That's clear. It's a big market with a lot of eyeballs present, but how can you best reach them? And how do you make that financially viable?
I want to add, in the Philippines perspective, I always talk about the Philippines because it's the only thing I know. It's been like a regulatory challenge for quite some time. And fortunately, last year, milestone regulation in the Philippines was passed, which, because for the longest time, for you to build a network in the Philippines, you need a congressional franchise. And I think we were the only country that actually had that. Meaning, if you want to build a network, Congress has to meet to grant you a company to build a network, and everyone else, you just go to a regulatory agency, fill up some forms, comply with the requirements, and you can build networks. For the longest time in the Philippines, has always been the case. And because of that regulatory situation, regulations actually kind of drives the market dynamics. And the market dynamics in the Philippines, because of regulation, made connectivity in the Philippines really, really expensive, which prevented also the economics from the provider perspective to actually have the business case to put their edge in the Philippines, right? And I'm really optimistic that with this new bill, with a freer market, more competitive market in the Philippines, those connectivity costs will go down. But on a different note, regulations can also help that. So I'm helping with some data centers in the Philippines to see how government can also provide regulations to ease the make the ease of doing business in the Philippines better, because that could also be a hindrance to put the edge in the Philippines. So regulation can be a hindrance, and if used wisely, it could also be like a promoter of these things. So yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing I see as a common challenge for a lot of Asian Pacific economies is that that edge technology evolves faster than the regulations. And when I talk with the policymakers and regulators, they usually take these new technologies on the edge, same as traditional networks. And I guess that brings a lot of challenges from the regulatory side, because it's that capacity of a regulator at country X in Asia Pacific versus the disruptive complementary edge business models coming at the same time. Philippines is a great example. I guess that's something which was pulled together by the community, and I see that enables an opportunity for other Southeast Asian and South Asian economies to look at this and see how this can happen. Because, like Gio said, sometimes regulations could be complicated and can make things more difficult than easier, while sometimes they can enable an environment.
100%. We see that all the time, right? It's like where the government is supportive, it makes it a ton easier for us to move into these markets. But at the same time, where it's prohibitive and there's foreign ownership restrictions, that is definitely a big hurdle for us to enter a market.
Just to add, this is not from Asia Pacific region, but in Serbia we have IXP, which is Serbian Open Exchange. We also have data center, but because of regulatory constraints, we don't have Starlink internet. And so many people who came, foreign people who came in Serbia, asked me why I can use Starlink. So we are, because of regulatory constraints, I say, let's say a black hole in Southeast Europe.
Yeah, for Indonesia, I think we face also the fragmented regulation, and also not to mention the licensing requirements also. And then I believe it's time for the government to play their roles to see the main benefit of this deploying the new age in Indonesia. And then at the same time, they also the government also need to balance the market situation. So it could be beneficial for all of the users, and also to the old ISP with the more old deployment of the network. So yeah, that's from the Indonesian point of view.
All right. Thank you for those. I guess regulatory is a heavy topic. Every country governs itself differently, and so those presents itself its own challenges. Still on the APAC perspective, how do you ensure resilience and redundancy when the edge itself is geographically dynamic? Satellites, fiber, microwave, mobility, all these different technologies. How do we ensure that we're still resilient with these new emerging technologies? So let's take it from a measurement perspective. I'm sure you've seen different measurements and from different probes, and then suddenly you'll lose connection from that probe, or it'll take a longer transit. Any thoughts on that from a measurement perspective?
I think maybe resilience comes from a redundancy, just like I said from my Japan probe, which dynamically changed the edges point. So I think the resilience comes from redundancy.
All right. And then I know Philippines and Indonesia have very similar kind of geography in the archipelago. How do you guys ensure resilience?
Yeah. So to ensure resilience, so I believe that we need to make a multiple interconnection hub, because in Indonesia right now it is too centralized in a Jakarta area. So that's why it's aligned also with what we did in Jakarta IX, that we want to push traffic more local on other cities, maybe secondary cities, or maybe other remote areas. So that's why we need a multiple interconnection hub in other cities and other areas to make the resiliency and redundancy happen.
Yeah, it's kind of the same when when I had a cloud business. The principle was always design that it will fail. So when with cloud, because of instantiating instances of compute is easy, so it became cheap to do that. So you can deploy so many instances because one of them can fail. And I think I learned in networking, it's the principle is the same, but there's always like, again, the limit, because you can't have like end connections, right? And or stuff. So there's that optimal, but it's the same distribution. If you can distribute as much, then I think you don't guarantee resiliency, but you increase resiliency if you distribute as much. If you have redundant connection, then you do the same thing. So yeah, so design for failure, I think, is a philosophy to follow.
Totally agree. And I think certainly it's distribution, but then also aggregation, right? Bringing it back to like a tiered model, where tier 3 is like the hard to reach areas that can be addressed by LEO, getting that back to more a metro edge within secondary markets that can deliver local content and peering and bringing the costs down. But then ultimately, I think there is the use case for the tier 1 metro that really brings the resilience, the aggregation point for international content, international traffic. And when you look at these different tiers, I think that brings the resiliency just by redundancy and the different leveling of resilience and SLAs associated with that.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next question, we're on a different kind of topic now. We're talking about the future. So we've talked about the past, what we defined it, and how we relate to it in Asia Pacific. Now we're going to start talking a little bit more philosophical or theoretical, the future of interconnection. Over our discussions, we kind of already touched about what is the main driver for edge. We talked about our regulations. We talked about geography. Talked about economics. So, is there anything else you guys want to add to this question?
I think the main driver will always be the workloads itself and their requirements, right? So low latency requirements will drive the edge closer to the user. How close, that's debatable. And I think we all have our different opinions about that, but I do believe it will go down to the workload requirements.
So it's kind of the opposite of build it and they will come. It's build it because they need it. Right.
I would phrase the question, I would invert the question, because I think demand would always want the edge as close to our brains. But it's more like what's actually hindering that, right? So I think for us, at least in our experience in the Philippines, we've always kind of looked into what we can do to actually lower or break the obstacles to get that to happen. For example, I go beyond my role as as an operator of an exchange and an ISP. When I talk to content providers and CDNs to come to the Philippines, I ask them, "What is it? Is it power?" Because I'll talk to my friends in the power utilities. Is it ease of doing business? Is it government? So I talk to. So it's kind of like, it's more like what can we do to actually ease the obstacles that get the edge? Because the edge content will always, or demand will always want the content or application to be as close as possible. What's stopping it though are costs and other inefficiencies that maybe we need to kind of like break or tackle one by one if we can.
Just to add from operator perspective, I agree with my colleagues, but want to add that our users are really greedy and they wanted so high throughput and so low latency. So yes, moving edge closer to the user will improve user experience, especially in the future era of virtual reality or augmenting reality or 6G era. So yes.
Yeah, so our users are, with the growing digital age, I think their appetite is growing with it too, right? Higher quality videos, gaming, all those things. It's the demand for it is growing, and so then the push for it is growing, as you were saying. All right, moving on to the next question on the future. So think outside the box. What might a typical edge development look like in 2030 or 2035? Will it be the same as the trajectory we're on right now, or do you think it could be something different? Thoughts on it, Naveed?
Very difficult question because you see, we live in an era of uncertainty. So while technology is the main driver, there are a lot of subsequent things that are attached to it. And when you think or try to predict what is going to happen in next 3 to 4 years, there are a lot of things attached which are not in your control. So I see that, and I hope that by 2030 or 2035, what we see in urban or big cities like Tokyo or Singapore, in terms of such a high demand of edge and such an efficient use of edge, we are able to see it across all the places. If that happens in terms of overall interconnection or bringing services near to the edge or the user, what I believe, I think that's a dream. So for me, it's very difficult to say what it might look like, but I can say that what I would like it to be.
Yeah, for me in 2030 or 2035, the deployment of the edge should be smaller and then scale up, scalability, and then fully automated, and also make it more closer to the users. So yeah.
I think in the future will be definitely multimodal. Like Katarina said, right? It's going to be a mix of LEO networks, terrestrial fiber, and it needs to be connected in a meaningful way. It needs to be automated. Routes need to be optimized. There needs to be, an optimized way of rerouting traffic as fiber breaks or terrestrial waves are no longer available. And so the automation layer, I think, is going to be a meaningful that we're going to invest more and more in 2013 and 2035.
Oh, maybe I will talk more about science fiction, but maybe we will have the edge in orbit and we will have maybe interplanetary, let's say, links between planets, so laser links. So maybe the edge will be in orbit.
I want to talk about science fiction too. But I think, to me, for the risk of, mentioning AI, forgive me, but I think it also depends on like the behavior in terms of when you actually want that internet content or app, right? For example, if you want to watch like a video, it's kind of like you do it probably when you get home and watch Netflix, for example. But when AI, when we're kind of like already conversing with AI on a day-to-day, not minute-by-minute basis, then that inference engines need to go closer to the edge because it becomes such a the latency requirement is almost like a game requirement for latency, right? So you're kind of conversing with it on a per minute basis. So I'm thinking that at some point, if compute and the requirement to have that compute so the models will be small enough, and our cell phones would probably have, or whatever device that's embedded in our head would have like that, can contain that model, and the compute, the power needed for that is enough to get to a small device, then who knows, then maybe the edge would really be as close to you as possible at some point, right? I wish.
All right, so I know I'm a moderator here, but I really like this question, and I do also have a science fiction kind of idea. So let me divulge into this real quick. So this is a back of the napkin, kind of drinking beer, writing down ideas, joking with a friend of mine, and we talked about what if we put the cloud actually in the cloud? What if the satellites were not just interconnectivity? What if we put a data center in the sky, ran out of solar winds and solar power, and actually had like mini data centers in the sky? And you could have actually, the literal cloud. And that's literally on the edge of the globe, right? So yes, that's my science fiction idea of what the cloud could be in the
I will
edge.
take it back to the R&D department.
Yes, someone smarter than me, please develop this. I would love to have that. All right, moving on to the next question. So we kind of touched on about this, but cloud satellites, IXPs, and terrestrial networks eventually form eventually form a seamless hybrid interconnection fabric. Um, Anybody want to take on this?
I can take a go at that. I think it's very core to our business model. We are the aggregation point where all of these providers meet and exchange. And so I think it's not only possible, I think it is going to be required in the future to have that. The question is more around what does seamless mean in this context and how seamless can we make it? So right now when we're looking at these different providers, they all have different commercial models. And so bridging that is going to be a big effort in the future. There's definitely technology challenges around that as well. But looking at trust and security, when we have this Uber network in a way, or this intermodal network, who's going to make the routing decisions? How is all of that working? How do we get to a level where the routing decisions are optimized not only for performance, for fault tolerance, but also for pricing? So I think it is possible, but there's definitely still a long way to go.
I think, in my opinion, they already are working together, right? Because each of these components serve a certain function, and largely they're complementary. There's, like you said, how do you define seamlessness, right? But I think it's already kind of playing that complementary role to each other. For example, IXPs is sort of the aggregation, and then we locate in data centers. You guys provide that physical infrastructure. Satellites probably increase the access part of it, and sometimes satellite needs the terrestrial networks to actually get to the exchange. So I think there's already this complementary model that's working. It's not perfect, but it's kind of there already, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, actually, it's happening. Like I was saying, from India, I would not name the IX, but it is happening somewhere in India, and it will definitely continue. I guess I would just cross the seamless and put an efficient and meaningful here. I think that's the question that we should start asking ourselves.
But can it be efficient and meaningful if it's not seamless?
I just want to add that, okay, they coexist, but if I have operator perspective of view, especially because I'm working in mobile communication, I see satellite and, let's say, mobile terrestrial networks as different networks. And I highlighted also it in my previous panel discussion, because in mobile network, I could be as a user static, or I can be mobile. But my base station is static on some rooftop or somewhere indoor. But in satellite communication, I have Starlink router, for example, which is static. but base station in Cosmos are dynamic. And I think this is kind of different networks. And I think it's hard to make it interoperable. It is possible, but it is hard. So yes, that's my point.
All right. For me, from my experience, real quick, I already see a seamless kind of hybrid connection, especially in a low latency required environment. In gamers, you could have some gamers on LAN internet, you can have some gamers on satellite, and they're all playing the same game harmoniously. That's a very um, millisecond sensitive kind of environment, and they're working together just fine. So you can take that kind of concept to maybe telemedicine or other concepts, and that's where we can start to see like these differentiations like align themselves. Quite interesting. All right, moving on to our last and final question of the panel, and a last bit of future of interconnection. How should operators and IXPs prepare for the next wave of edge growth? We do have 8 minutes left, so I'll just give everyone one chance to speak as the timer runs out. Would like to go first?
I don't represent an operator or an IX. I would say it's important that we are able to collaborate, coordinate, and communicate.
Yeah, for the IXP, of course, like I said before, like we need to prepare for the other interconnection hub outside the big cities, and then yeah, everyone needs to be involved in this, both operators and also the IXP. So yeah, that's something that we need to prepare another deployment of the interconnection hub outside of the big cities.
I agree with Naveed. I think it's going to be built very much on partnerships and establishing these partnerships across the different access methods, because none of us can reach it by themselves as the edges expand, and it's not commercial viable to do that, right? So I think every partner in these ecosystems has their role to play, and getting it together, bringing it together in a seamless or with a good user experience built on top of it is going to be key.
Okay, I wanted just to add that operators and every engineer, let's say in technical department, should be aware that end-to-end latency is not just access latency. It's more about backbone network, edges, and also access network. And maybe just to add and then I would like to recommend all people in operators to use RIPE Atlas and to conduct the measurement. And maybe just for finish, I want to say, space may be dark, but the future of satellite communication is bright.
Well, nothing much to add, but I think from where, if you're an operator of the IX, then just continue to drive efficiency within the IX so that the IX actually performs its role in this network value chain. And then for those outside of the IX scope, like we always do, like Naveed said, we try to talk to the other links in this chain to see how we can actually make this as efficient as possible. Like I said, to me, the edge, the demand will always try to drive the edge as close to the users, and I think our job is actually to make that to get rid of all the obstacles, whether it's technical, efficiency, or regulatory obstacles, if we can.
All right, thank you, everyone. And I guess just to kind of summarize everything that everyone was saying is, I think what we're doing to prepare for the next wave of edge growth is already what we're doing. We're collaborating. We're coming to these meetings. We're working with partners. We'll bring one piece of this puzzle. You bring the other piece, and together we'll make a whole. Right. In the APX meeting on Sunday, we had a kind of a workshop activity, and one of the slogans that we came up with was, the internet is a shared resources. We should all work together to make it better. Right. Yeah, and so that's kind of so as Katrina said, the future is bright because we're already working towards it. So we do have a few minutes left. We can open up the floor for questions to the panel from anybody. If anybody has any interesting questions or comments they'd like to make. If not, I'd like to thank our panel one more time, Gio, Navid, Dito, Fabian, and Katrina. Thank you very much for spending your time with us. Stick around in the next few minutes. We're going to be moving on to the peering personals 2. So if you guys are here for that, please stick around. Thanks.
We've been here before. A long story short, you walked out the door. Gotta get over myself. The drinks, they don't help. I've got to at least try. We're spinning out of control, and I've just got to know if I follow, will it turn the ship around? If I let go, will it leave me here to drown? Gotta get over myself, this can't be farewell. I've got to at least try. If I follow, will you turn the ship around? As I'm slowly sinking down. Just another night, just another fight. Will it be alright?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm back again. Hope you're not tired of me. We're going to get started with the second session of the peering personals. So, just move on. So real quick, if everyone can just take a look at the list and help start getting yourselves aligned here on the left side of this, your right, my left side of the stage. That way we can get you guys all lined up. You guys about 20, 30 seconds, just start moving your way up here. Thank you. All right. Oh, and just a reminder, you know, we do have a nice event going on outside after the Being Personal, so we're just gonna do a quick competition on the speediest delivery. We do have a special prize at the end for the fastest delivery. So we have our timer here, Mr. Rock. And we're gonna go ahead and get started with our first speaker at Tokyo.
Hi, I'm Airi Katogi from Tokyo. Tokyo is one of the leading company that is centers and connectivity service. And we provide a full range of service across the 13 data center, including Tokyo, Osaka, Hokkaido, and Fukuoka. Then CC1 and CC2, our flagship data center in Tokyo, they are 131 AS. Please visit the pillar in DB. Our AS number is 9999. And also, we opened a new data center called CC3. CC3 is growing the numbers of users. We hope we are working together to make it one of the Japanese global network hub. So we're looking forward to working with you and being support your business in Japan. Thank you.
All right, up next we have BB Backbone.
Hi, I'm Mana from BB Backbone. We are the most aggressive transport company in Japan, focusing on high-capacity connectivity. We empower your network with dark fiber and spectrum, which we offer 100G, 400G, and terabit class connectivity. With our spectrum services, we can connect data centers with diverse and secured routes. And here's our update for APRICOT 2026. To meet the exploding demand for bandwidth in Japan, we have launched 800ZL and 1.6 terabit connectivity. If you're looking for high-capacity connectivity in Japan, please feel free to reach out to us anytime. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our next, Cloud Telecom.
Hi, Anthony here, born in the Philippines and live in Singapore for almost 2 decades. So it's the company Cloud Telecom. Basically, can you move to the next slide, please? Oh, there's only one slide. Okay, I submitted more than. Well, basically, I have around 14 POPs in Singapore. I am delivering 100G, even 400G if needed to. So that's the ISP number, 149290. Majority of my current services around backhaul service and data center interconnect. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Community IX.
Hello, Greg Hankins representing Community IX. We are a community-based IX in the US. We've had Flix in Florida for some years and also Kix Atlanta for some years. We just opened Kix Nova, a new IXP there last fall, and also expanding POPs in Atlanta and Florida. If you're interested in peering in any of those cities, come talk to me. And the next one's also me.
All right, next slide.
Also volunteering with Open Pipes. This is a new community-based effort in the US. The first location is in Chicago. We are looking for founding members, so if you're interested in connecting in Chicago, also come talk to me. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next, DKIX.
Hi everyone, I'm Victor from DKIX. So in this Southeast Asian and Asia region, we operate a few metro. So here is all the metro that we operate. So the first one is ASEAN. So ASEAN interconnect all the location within the ASEAN. So the second one is local Jakarta. We also have a local exchange here. Then in Kuala Lumpur and Penang, we have for under the Malaysia, and then for India we have few metro there with participant and peak traffic details there. So feel free to contact our BD team if you want to connect to our platform for interconnect. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Guam Exchange. Oh, it's me. All right, switch mics.
All right, so my name is Jose Santiago. This is Guam Exchange. We're an IX and a data center. Interesting that we have news. So from the last APRICOT to today, we've doubled our numbers in ASN. So that's the progress we've made in about 360 days. Thank you.
Next, we have Home Knock Operators Group.
Hello, I'm Takeshi from Home Knock Operators Group in Japan. We Home Knock Operators Group providing transit to university and individual areas, and we are research and experimental network. And our peering policy is selective but basically open, and we want to peer more and more and get traffic as a eyeball network. Yes, feel free to talk with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Hurricane Electric. This is Walt around. All right, so this is Hurricane Electric. They are a data center operator in this slide. That's their information. You can go to their website if you have more information. Their updates here is a free rack and power. Ask him how. So find Walt and ask him how. All right, moving on to the next. We have IX Australia.
Hi there, my name's Matthew Kobayashi. I'm from IX Australia. I'm one of the peering engineers. We operate 7 IXs across Australia. We also provide operational support for NZIX, where there are another additional 3 internet exchanges. We also have a great deal of involvement in policy advocacy and things like that as well. If you're coming to Australia, or if you're in Australia and you're interested in peering, or you already peer and you want some more, please come and reach out to us and talk to us. Myself and also our Chief Executive, Neural Clark, is here as well.
All right, thank you. Moving on to JPIX.
Terima kasih. I'm Juta from JPIX, the IX from Japan. So we are running 4 networks in Japan. So Tokyo, Osaka, Fukuoka, and Hokkaido. In Tokyo, in the 14 data centers. In Osaka, 10 data centers. Newest one, the Optech Sonesaki OC1, just launched this month. And Fukuoka, many of the OTT is now looking for Fukuoka to expand, and one in Hokkaido. So the peak traffic you can see in Tokyo is about 3.7 tera, and in the Osaka it's about 1.8, and Fukuoka is still going up and up. So we have the team here. You can see many people. I take care of the Southeast Asia, and we also have Mugi and also Mawatari-san, and our head is Nishimura-san. Our updates is we are running on the 400G compatibility, and the other one is we need to have more partners, so we are promoting on the remote peering via our partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kinks.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from KINS. We are the biggest IX provider in Korea. And we have 8 data centers in Korea, including our newest data center, KINS Gwacheon. You can connect with us in all of our centers. And also in Korea, we're extending our POPs to other data centers as well. And internationally, we have our POPs in Hong Kong and Japan. And this year, we're looking forward to also putting a POP in Singapore. So hopefully, we can meet you there through remote peering as well. And please feel free to say hi to all of us and our network engineer. And especially, Sean, it's Sean's birthday today. So please say happy birthday to him. Happy peering.
Happy birthday, Sean. Next, we have Thailand IX NT Data Center NT. All right, the whole team.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Jakit and my colleague is B and Bell from National Telecom NT, Thailand. Our IP transit is 4651 and TA040. The traffic is about 2.1 terabit. Our policy is open. We have 5 locations for PNI outside Thailand and 15 internet exchange can contact to you. Thailand.
For Thailand IX, we have 74 members with 5 locations in NT Bang Rak Tower, Telehouse Bangkok, TCC Bang Na, NT Nonthaburi, and Telus Data Center. The peak traffic is around more than 600 gigs.
For NT Data Center service, we have multiple data centers located in North, South, East, and Central region of Thailand. The main sites are located in Bangkok. For more information, please search for our AS on PeeringDB, visit our website or contact our team. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, SoftBank.
Hi, I'm Takuma from SoftBank. So we are the one of the biggest network provider in Japan. So we are providing the broadband and mobile network and so on. And so now we have a POP in Tokyo and Osaka, but we are considering the Fukuoka. So let's talk about it in the social. And also we have a POP in the Asian region, Hong Kong and Singapore. And now we are expanding the capacity in the Singapore. So I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to be in Singapore. And also we have a POP in United States and Europe. So we are the global network provider. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is ST Telemedia.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rock de la Cruz from ST Telemedia Global Data Centers Philippines, and it's a privilege to be part of the APRICOT 2026. ST Telemedia operates and manages close to 100 data centers in 12 countries, and in the Philippines, we have 6 data centers, the largest of which is STT Fairview, which is around 124 megawatts, and it can accommodate hyperscaler and AI service providers. We also manage and operate STT Makati, which is the former MK2, and it's the carrier hotel of STT in the Philippines. We also have STT Cavite, as well as STT Quezon City, which is ideal for hyperscaler service providers and partners. And of course, down south, we have STT Davao, which is also home to the CUS cable landing system. And let me just focus on what the data center is. It's a very critical infrastructure, and STT is here to help build a vibrant internet ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Taiwan Digital Streaming Company.
So, okay, good afternoon, everyone, guys. So, well, even though it's a corporation, then it actually is the biggest hobby network in Asia. Okay, so I run the S18001 as my own hobby network, and we present in all, mostly all of the IX in the Taiwan. So if you have any interesting like going to Taiwan or like set up a new pub in Taiwan, then you can connect us. And I also like established a new IX called S2IX, and well, it's kind of the hobby IX in also the first community IX in Asia. Okay, so and I also run my own personal network, which is a 207.468. So if you like presenting, we are now only have POP in Taiwan. So if you are presenting Taiwan and want to appear with us, then yeah, please contact me. So as a hubby network, we have like around 200 G of traffic. Yeah, I think it's the biggest the hubby network in the Asia. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. We have TCC Technology.
Hi everyone, I'm Kunapat from TC Technology. TC Technology, we operate both ISP and data center in Thailand. On IP side, we operate under AS 58430 and 45667 with an open policy. For data center service, we operate TCC BNDC, and for you can find more our information on Peeling DB profile. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next we have Telstra. Is Telstra here? Okay, so this is Telstra. Just read it real quick. Telstra, they're an ISP and transport. Look for Bernard. Ask him more information about Telstra. Here's their peering DB and website contact information. Okay, next we have ZenLayer. ZenLayer here? Okay, so ZenLayer, this is ZenLayer. They have ASN 21859 and 4229. Here's their peering DB and contact information. Look for Mark Chen or Chin Che. Okay. All right, and that's the end of the peering personals. But stick around, we're not completely done. A couple more information reminders. And so thank you. This is the end of the APRICOT Peering Forum. The next session is tomorrow, February 11, here in the same ballroom. We have the network operations at 9:30, network management at 11:30, and lightning talks at 2:30. So if you guys have any interesting discussions you guys want to have submitted to talk about tomorrow, we have the lightning talks open for submissions. Okay. Again, we want to thank our Peering Forum sponsors for which all of this could have happened. So we want to thank BBIX and DKIX. Thank you very much for sponsoring this Peering Forum. Okay. And right after we're done with this session, right outside the doors, you'll have a Peering Meet Me and General Social. We have some drinks, some light snacks, nibbles, not entirely a full dinner. So after that, you can go out. But this general meeting is for us to all kind of wind down and talk about what we've just discussed today. If you saw someone in the peering personals you want to reach out to, outside the door will be a perfect place to do. Okay, and that will go up until 8 o'clock tonight. Then we have a community announcement real quick from Mr. Kotaro Khan. Yes, he's coming.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kotaro from NTT Smart Connect, and I'm part of the local host team of the Peer Engager 8.0. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here to announce the next Peer Engager. So the next Peer Engager will be held in Osaka, Japan this November. Hosted by JPNAP, Optage, and NTT Smart Connect. And the venue is the Hotel New Otani Osaka. This is located in really central Osaka. It has the great history and it's very worth visiting. So yeah, appreciate to welcome you there. We are working very closely with the local, with the community member to make the place more better place to the peering discussion. Of course, the peering discussion is the main topic of there, but we hope you will enjoy the city itself, so the food, culture, and the atmosphere of the Osaka. Yeah, also we are now opening the sponsorship as well. So yeah, I will share the detailed information as soon as possible. So appreciate it if you get involved as a sponsor. Yeah, anyway, we are really looking forward to welcome all of you in Osaka. So thank you.
All right, thank you. So as we mentioned, there was a special prize for the fastest presenter. So in the peering session 1, we had Rapid Networks. Michael, is he around? No? Okay. And then for the second session, who did we? Okay, so apparently I was the fastest session, but I'm going to give it to the next person. I'm not going to take my own gift. Who'll be next? Home Networks. Okay, so you were the next fastest presenter. So please come on stage and please accept this. All right. So congratulations on the fastest peering personal delivery. This is coffee made in Guam. All right. Okay. So we just take a picture. Gotta do the Achi style, you know? All right. Huh? Oh, yes, I will send you. Okay. And then can we call up all of the peering personal speakers for one big group photo? All right, we'll just go right in front of the table here.